In conclusion, trusting God's timing is one of the most powerful acts of faith we can embrace in our journey toward fulfillment. It requires us to let go of our need for control and to surrender our plans to the one who knows the beginning from the end. While it may not always make sense in the moment, we must trust that his timing is perfect, even when it feels like nothing is happening. God is working behind the scenes, preparing us, refining us, and aligning everything for our good. The waiting is not wasted, it's a part of the process. It's where our character is developed, where our faith is tested, and where we are shaped for the purpose he has for us. Trusting God's timing allows us to experience true peace, knowing that we are not in this journey alone. He is guiding us, and he will bring his plan to fruition in our lives when the time is right. So as you continue on your path, remember that fulfillment comes when you align your heart with God's timing. Trust him in the waiting, trust him in the process, and trust him with your future. The best is yet to come, and God will bring everything into place at the perfect moment. Keep moving forward with confidence, knowing that he is always on time. Trusting God's plan beyond our understanding is one of the most challenging yet liberating aspects of faith. It requires us to release the illusion of control and surrender to a higher power, one whose wisdom far exceeds our own. In a world that values certainty, independence, and the ability to figure things out, the idea of trusting someone else's plan, especially when it's beyond our comprehension, can feel daunting. Yet it's in those moments of uncertainty that God's plan is at work most profoundly in our lives. Our natural instinct is to want to control every situation, to understand every step before we take it, and to seek the comfort of predictability. But life doesn't always unfold the way we expect. Plans fall apart, circumstances change, and the future is uncertain. This is where our faith is tested. Will we trust in a we can't fully see? Will we lean on God when we can't understand the why behind the what? The truth is, God's plan is often bigger, more intricate, and more beautiful than we could ever imagine. We are limited by our perspective. We see only a small fraction of the bigger picture. But God, who is outside of time, sees the beginning from the end. What may seem like a detour or a setback could be exactly what we need to grow, to learn, and to be shaped into who God created us to be. We may not see it at the moment, but every twist and turn, every challenge, every unanswered prayer is part of a divine plan designed for our ultimate good. Trusting God's plan beyond our understanding requires a willingness to believe that God is always at work, even in the silence, even when we can't see the next step. It's not about having all the answers, but about believing that God holds the answers. It's about acknowledging that we are not the author of our own story, he is. This doesn't mean life will be without difficulty or pain, but it does mean that we can find peace knowing that God is orchestrating something greater than we can grasp in our limited understanding. When we let go of our need to control every detail, we open ourselves to the freedom that comes with trusting God. We can begin to step out in faith, even when the road ahead is unclear. Trusting God's plan isn't about waiting for the perfect, easy, or comfortable situation to appear. It's about trusting him when the road is bumpy, when the answers aren't coming, and when it feels like everything is falling apart. It's in these moments that our faith grows deeper, our reliance on him becomes stronger, and we are shaped more into his image. There is beauty in the uncertainty when we trust that God is working in the unseen. His plan isn't always easy to follow, but it is always purposeful. And as we walk forward, even when we don't fully understand why things are happening the way they are, we can rest in the knowledge that he knows what he's doing. His plan is always for our good and his glory. And though we may not have all the answers today, we can trust that in time he will reveal the bigger picture. It's a humbling experience to trust in God's plan beyond our understanding, but it's also one of the most freeing and rewarding steps we can take in our journey of faith. Trusting in the unseen doesn't require us to have it all figured out. It requires us to have faith in the one who already has it all figured out. And in that trust, we can find peace, purpose, and a sense of assurance that no matter what, God is guiding us every step of the way. Faith in the unseen is at the heart of the Christian walk, and it challenges us to trust beyond what we can perceive with our senses. It's the kind of faith that doesn't rely on seeing, touching, or understanding every single detail of what lies ahead. Instead, it's the belief that even when we can't see the outcome, God is still at work behind the scenes, guiding us toward a purpose we may not fully comprehend in the moment. This kind of faith isn't built on certainty. or the tangible lights rooted in the assurance that God's promises are true, even when everything around us seems unclear. Faith in the unseen calls us to embrace uncertainty, and that's one of the hardest aspects of living by faith. We live in a world that thrives on answers, on knowing what's next, on having a clear roadmap for our lives. But faith in the unseen asks us to let go of our need for control, our desire to have everything mapped out. It asks us to trust in God's timing, His wisdom, and His ability to lead us even when we don't have all the answers. It's not a faith that demands proof, but one that relies on a deep-rooted confidence in the character of God. When life feels uncertain, when doors seem to close, or the future looks foggy, faith in the unseen reminds us that God is still in control, working behind the scenes for our good and His glory. The beauty of faith in the unseen is that it doesn't require us to understand everything or know exactly how things will turn out. It simply calls us to trust that God is in the midst of our circumstances, even when we can't see His hand. We might not understand why things happen the way they do, but we can trust that there is purpose in every moment. Even in our struggles, doubts, and moments of weakness, faith in the unseen assures us that God is present and actively shaping our future. His ways are higher than our ways, and His understanding is beyond ours. And when we lean into that truth, we begin to release the fear and anxiety that often come from not knowing what's next. Faith in the unseen also invites us into a deeper relationship with God. It's not just about trusting in what He can do for us, but about trusting Him in the process, even when it's difficult. It's about acknowledging that though we can't always see the full picture, God sees all things clearly. Our faith in Him is not a blind leap. It's a confident step in the direction of His will. We believe that He is faithful to fulfill every promise, even when the road ahead is filled with challenges. In those moments of doubt, it's not about having all the answers, but about trusting in the one who holds the answers. This kind of faith doesn't come easy. It requires us to let go of our own desires for control and to surrender to God's perfect plan, trusting that His timing is best. We are often tempted to take matters into our own hands or to search for a solution we can control. But faith in the unseen teaches us to wait patiently, knowing that God is orchestrating everything for our good. It's in these moments of waiting that our faith is refined. We learn to trust that God is working even when we don't see immediate results or when things don't happen the way we expected. When we place our trust in the unseen, we shift our focus from our circumstances to the promises of God. We begin to realize that faith is not about waiting for a change in our situation, but about knowing that God is faithful, regardless of what we see. The unseen doesn't always mean that things are absent or that here is nothing going on behind the scenes. Often the unseen is simply the work God is doing in the spiritual realm that we cannot yet see or understand with our human eyes. But faith assures us that His work is active, even when we don't feel it, and that in due time, the results will become evident. Faith in the unseen ultimately leads us to a deeper trust in God's character. It's the belief that even when life doesn't make sense, God is still good, still faithful, and still in control. When we embrace faith in the unseen, we can walk confidently into the future, knowing that we are never alone and that God's plan is unfolding in ways we can't yet understand. It's the kind of faith that brings peace in the midst of uncertainty, joy in the waiting, and strength in the face of adversity. Because when we trust in the unseen, we trust in the one who sees it all, and that makes all the difference. The power of patience in waiting is something that we often overlook, especially in a world that thrives on instant gratification. In our culture, waiting is often seen as a negative experience, something that feels like a waste of time or a frustrating inconvenience. We live in a world where we expect results to happen now, where we want our goals achieved yesterday, and where delays can feel like setbacks. But patience, as difficult as it can be, is not just a passive waiting game. It's an active and transformative process that shapes us into the people we are meant to become. Patience teaches us that growth doesn't always happen overnight. It requires us to trust in something greater than ourselves, to believe that what we're waiting for is coming, even if we can't see it yet. When we're in a season of waiting, it's easy to become disheartened or impatient. We wonder why things are taking so long, why progress feels slow, and why the breakthrough we're hoping for is still out of reach. But it's in these moments that God is working the most, shaping our hearts, deepening our faith, and preparing us for what's ahead. Waiting doesn't mean that nothing is happening. It means that something important is happening beneath the surface. Like a seed planted in the ground, waiting for the right conditions to sprout, we may not see the immediate growth, but something is happening in the unseen. Patience allows us to trust that even when we don't see the results right away, God is preparing us, refining us, and setting us up for a greater purpose. Without patience, we would miss the lessons that come during the waiting period, the lessons of perseverance, endurance, and trust in God's timing. The power of patience is not only in the process itself, but in how it transforms us. As we wait, we learn to let go of our control and surrender to God's timing. We begin to understand that His ways are not our ways, and that His plans are always better than our own. Patience teaches us to stop rushing ahead, to stop forcing things to happen, and to simply trust that God is in control. It forces us to confront our own anxieties and fears, reminding us that we don't need to control everything in order for things to work out. Patience challenges us to live in the moment, to stay focused on the present, and to trust that God is working everything together for our good. There is a strength that comes from patient strength that is built in the waiting. It's the kind of strength that comes from learning to trust God when things aren't moving as quickly as we want them to, and from realizing that God's timing is perfect, even when it doesn't match our own. Waiting forces us to confront the areas of our lives where we lack trust, and it strengthens our ability to wait on God, even when the wait feels long. Patience also teaches us humility. It reminds us that we are not in control and that sometimes we must wait for the right time for things to fall into place. In a world that celebrates self-sufficiency, waiting humbles us, showing us that we cannot make things happen on our own. We have to trust in something beyond ourselves, and that's where God's faithfulness shines. Patience reveals the character of God to us. It shows us that He is never late, never in a hurry, and always knows the perfect timing for every aspect of our lives. In the end, the power of patience and waiting isn't just about enduring, it's about becoming. The waiting period shapes us, molds us, and prepares us for what God has in store. It's a period of growth and transformation, one that allows us to develop the character traits we'll need to handle the blessings that are coming our way. And when the wait is over, we'll look back and see that God used that time to prepare us for something far greater than we could have imagined. Patience doesn't just change our circumstances, it changes us, and that is where the real power lies. In conclusion, patience is not just a passive act of waiting, but an active and transformative process. It teaches us to trust in God's timing, surrender our control, and grow in our faith. While the waiting may feel long and uncertain, it's in these moments that God is shaping us, preparing us for the next chapter of our journey. The power of patience lies not just in the outcome, but in how it refines our character, strengthens our trust, and aligns us with God's perfect plan. As we continue to wait, let us embrace the growth, the lessons, and the transformation that comes with it, knowing that God is always at work behind the scenes. Our waiting is never wasted. God is preparing us for something greater, and His timing is always right.